Dr. Kendra Bjoraker is a pediatric neuropsychologist with specialist training and expertise in rare genetic diseases. Drawing on years of experience and personal insight, Kendra explores the real challenges of balancing mental health with metabolic diagnosis. Through her compassionate storytelling, she shares practical advice and highlights the power of community to help us confidently navigate our own health journeys. In Kendra's words, you need courage, compassion, community, and the willingness to take one step at a time. Strength isn't about having a perfect map, but about discovering you're stronger than you ever knew. So let's walk this path together. Join us for this month's episode of Metabolically Speaking. We'll explore resilience and share meaningful advice on how to live fully with purpose, connection, and self-compassion. Welcome to Metabolically Speaking, the podcast that dives into life with inherited metabolic conditions. Proudly brought to you by Canbrook, delivering therapeutic nutrition for more than 25 years and empowering families to live without limits. I'm your host, Maridith Baker. I've lived with PKU my whole life, so I know the ups and downs and all the in-between moments that come with navigating a rare condition. Each month, I sit down with experts, advocates, and people with lived experiences for honest conversations about what it really means to live with a metabolic condition. Whether you're newly diagnosed, supporting someone you love, or have been on this journey for a while, this space is for you. So settle in and let's get into it. Welcome, everyone, to our second episode of Metabolically Speaking. Joining me today is Dr. Kendra Bjoraker, pediatric neuropsychologist with specialized expertise in rare genetic and metabolic diseases. With faculty positions at the University of Minnesota and Children's Hospital Colorado, Kendra's work spans advanced training in genetics, metabolism, and neuroimaging. Her multidisciplinary research focuses in on neuropsychological outcomes, disease progression, and psychological factors that impact quality of life of the individuals with rare and metabolic conditions. As a writer, researcher, and speaker, she champions person-centered, multidisciplinary care to improve her patients' quality of life. She also leads her own consultancy business, providing expert guidance in clinical care, research, and program development, and frequent speaker and presenter at national and international conferences. Kendra, it is so great to have you here.
It's so great to be here. Thank you, Meredith.
Of course.
And thank you, Canbrook.
Yes. Thank you, Kendra, for coming. I'm so excited. It's great to reconnect with you. And we have some great questions today. So are you ready to hop in?
I'm ready.
Okay. Kendra, can you tell us about your personal journey? What first drew you to a career in neuropsychology and to focus on rare genetic and metabolic disorders?
There were many things that drew me to neuropsychology and rare genetic disorders. Both personal and professional experiences led me to become a pediatric neuropsychologist. But during my psychology, the neuropsychology graduate training, which was a very long process, I was given what seemed like a straightforward task: write a report on rare genetic conditions and metabolic disorders. So after spending days of reading patient stories and completing evaluations and learning the science and trying to capture both the complexity and humanity behind each diagnosis, when it came time actually for me to give the report, it just was calling. It was just, as I was talking, it undeniably pulled me in. And I realized that this topic, this discipline, if you will, the rare genetic and metabolic disorders, was a calling. My work is about helping individuals and families navigate challenges, celebrate strengths, and hold on to hope.
That's great. That is very interesting, actually, with where you all began. Another question for you: how did you define mental health for someone managing a metabolic condition? Could you explain some of the signs of anxiety or depression in someone like that?
Sure, I'd love to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, Meredith, we all have mental health.
Mm-hmm.
just as we have physical health.
Mm-hmm.
And both may require attention and adjustment over time. And I always give this example. If you develop knee pain or you have a knee injury, you go to the doctor, you see the doctor, you undergo an evaluation to rule out any underlying causes, and then you receive treatment along with exercises you take home typically to restore function.
Yeah.
No different than mental health. Mental health follows a similar process. So at different points in your life, you may experience depression or anxiety. Your healthcare provider can first check you for any physical contributors to that, such as thyroid issues, and then refer you to mental health professionals. There you learn coping strategies, interventions, which, when practiced consistently, become habits you can carry with you into your daily life. Just like getting a tune-up on your knee, getting it back to square one. That's exactly what we do with mental health. You need a tune-up of your mental health. So to sum it up, we all have mental health, just like we have physical health. We both need attention and adjustments throughout our life. If your knee hurts, you see a doctor, you get it checked, follow treatment, and get back to baseline. Mental health's no different.
Mm-hmm.
There are formal definitions of mental health disorders, but the short version is depression and anxiety are common mental health conditions that affect how people feel, think, and behave, making daily life challenging. So depression, people think it's just sadness, but it goes way beyond sadness. It involves lasting sense of hopelessness, very low energy, and loss of interest in things like you once enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
People oftentimes have trouble sleeping. They feel unusually tired because they do have trouble sleeping. They experience changes in appetite. They feel worthless. But what's concerning to me is some of the physical manifestations of depression, but also what we tell ourselves. So some of the thoughts that go along with depression are, wow, I'm a failure. It's my fault. Nothing good happens. Things never change, or I'm just going to give up. So these symptoms cause clinical significant distress in all parts of your life, social, occupational, and other areas. Now with anxiety, that involves constant worry or fear that's hard to control. It can also cause physical symptoms like your racing heart, you become sweaty, muscle tension, and you can feel down with both of them, but usually with anxiety, you feel kind of revved or ramped up. And your mind is always in that constant state of what if? What if this happens? What if? What if I don't? What if I do this? What if? And this relentless anticipation of possible dangers or negative outcomes leaves people caught in the cycle of worry about things that may or may not happen. And really, anxiety, Meredith, is your brain's way to protect you from danger. That's all it is. At its core, anxiety is a survival mechanism that activates your fight, flight, or freeze response. And many of you can think of those situations. It tries to protect you through heightened awareness. So that's why they see some people are hypervigilant. Every time a door slams or something, they jump. So their response is heightened. And you can go into an avoidance strategy. So you avoid all situations that you perceive will lead to, let's say, embarrassment or rejection or failure, even if that's not actually dangerous. And also there's something that I'd like to teach the listeners called memory tagging. And it flags past painful or traumatic experiences so you can be more cautious in the future. And that's not all bad, because sometimes you get yourself in a situation where you should be memory tagged, like, I'm not going to go down that road again.
Yeah.
But also, you can have good experiences, but perceive them as not good, and then create a memory tag that heightens your anxiety so that you flee from that.
Mm.
So when we talk about mental health for someone managing a metabolic condition, I think of it as more of just the absence of symptoms. It's the ability to cope with daily life, to feel balanced emotionally, and to have resilience in the face of added challenges that chronic condition brings. So specifically, living with a metabolic condition often requires persistence, and I will say that with a capital P. Careful monitoring, frequent clinic visits, constant attention to your diet, labs, and medications. Well, this vigilance is essential for our health. It can also shape patterns of perfectionism.
Yeah.
The repeated message that every detail matters, and that's what children hear from a very young age, details matter. Well, sometimes when those details matter, what happens is it leads to an unrealistic high standard for themselves, feeling that they have to protect against lapses in care, but it also feels stress, anxiety, or self-criticism when the inevitable challenges of life make perfect impossible. So mental health in this context means having an emotional and psychological resource to manage those responsibilities. It's not a sign of weakness. I want everybody to know they're very understandable responses to managing a lifelong condition. So please, I want you to know that this is not a weakness. And in the metabolic world, it's the capacity to adapt on ongoing demands of treatment, dietary restrictions, and health uncertainties. Cognitive flexibility. So this is what you have to have a strong mental health, being able to problem solve and plan, being able to treat yourself kindly when setback occurs rather than spiraling into this guilt or self-blame or shame. Sustain your motivation and then seek support that understands you, that is positive and will build you up. So for metabolic conditions, it's about having the inner and outer resource to live fully life while managing the demands of the condition and recognizing that emotional well-being is just as important to health outcomes as a medical being.
That's great, Kendra. I hear so often from people that sometimes getting their fee levels back could feel like getting a report card back. And that could really also go with the mental health aspect of metabolic conditions and rare diseases and rare disorders. So that all makes such great sense with the way you explained that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So could you take us through the emotional journey your patients go through following the diagnosis of a rare metabolic disorder? How do you guide your patients through this?
Well, typically individuals can go through emotional, psychological, physical, and even spiritual responses after receiving a diagnosis. So it's really a holistic response to that diagnosis. It's a sense of loss that's profound and undeniable. This entire process is very complex. Nobody fits into one box, as it involves every aspect of your life. So emotionally, you could feel fear, shock, lost, disbelief, really confused, go through a grieving period, being overwhelmed, angry, and guilty, feel guilty. Psychologically, you could go into that depression or anxiety. You could develop phobias or obsessive compulsive behaviors. And then physically, you feel more pain, you feel more fatigue, extreme fatigue, not the fatigue that I would feel if I was flying across country to give a talk. And then trouble sleeping or eating. A chronic condition marks the end of a previously known world and your experiences for your child, because you become pregnant with preconceived ideas that the pregnancy's going well. You even fantasize almost of what it's going to be like to be parents, like taking my child to the park to swing, the happiness, the fulfillment, the education, the transition, how they will progress in life. And then when you get a diagnosis that is lifelong or life-changing, it just hits you in the gut and sends you to your knees. And really, you're standing there with feeling quite lost. I came up with kind of an analogy that I'd like to share with you, if that's okay. Well, years and years and years ago, a group of us were backpacking in the Bob Marshall Wilderness, which is located in the Rocky Mountains of the northwestern Montana. And I'm from Montana, and it's not a place that you want to kind of go up and mess with. Nature really rules, and the access is on foot or horseback, but that's grizzly bear habitat. Wild and scenic rivers, and it's very complex, just like humans are. So going down this really faint trail, we had everything packed. We had all of our bars packed. We had extra bottles of water, but we had the expectation we were going to go fishing, and we're going to use that fish to live on. As we were all walking down there, the trail ended. Just completely, whether it was overgrown or it just ended. And I recall looking up, and there was just this sliver of blue sky above me. And we kind of looked at each other, no trail, no map, no way out, and no one to ask help.
Oh, terrifying.
Terrifying. And that's what I feel like it's like when your child gets a diagnosis that is lifelong.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a roadmap. You don't have a GPS. You don't know where to begin. It's frightening. It's frustrating. And it feels quite lonely.
Mm-hmm.
But as the analogy unfolds, you're on that familiar road, sharing dreams and hopes that many parents commonly do, but you now find yourself at a trailhead leading to an unfamiliar terrain, knowing you must leave behind certain expectations, but not sure where this new road's going to leave you. And then you begin on a new path. And hey, it can be overgrown, uneven, and oftentimes hard to see. No clear markers for the journey ahead, just a compass of love, hope, and resilience. And every step requires patience, caution, and courage to move forward without knowing exactly what lies beyond the next turn. Here you begin blazing a new trail, one that no one else is exactly prepared for, yet one that's uniquely yours to shape. But guess what happens along the way? You discover strengths. And that's what, all parents do. They get information, they get support from other parents, they solicit expert guides, the personal strength you never knew that you had. And these resources become your survival gear. So all of the societies that are out there, the associations, the alliances, you rely on them. There could be unexpected detours or switchbacks or climbs, but you grow a resilience you never knew you had. And you find beauty in unexpected places. So every achievement, no matter how small, feels monumental because you know how hard you both worked to get there. And then all of a sudden, you become a guide for other people. So your footprints become a guide for others beginning their journey, and it's what's called a natural history study. By sharing your story and joining communities and offering support, you help clear the path for those who will follow. And then you reach a new horizon that is filled with purpose and strength. So that was a long analogy, but I think that
it definitely lines up.
It kind of lines up. So you're feeling lost, but you do create your own path. You do find the resources, and then you become really the path leader. You become the one who is finding the path and letting others follow behind you because now you have been through it.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I think it's also interesting because the diagnosis is really going normally to the patient's parents or caregivers.
Yes.
And the patients don't have that point of view. Speaking myself, I don't have the point of view of the diagnosis since I was diagnosed at newborn screening as a
Yes.
newborn. So clearly, like me as the patient, I don't have that recollection. This is more guided towards the caregiver or the parents that experienced all this. So it's very interesting to also hear it from my point of view, to hear how you're expressing it went for the parents or the caretakers.
And I think that's true with everything that we're talking about today. I think that it's geared towards the patients, but also when you talk about mental health, wellness, or mental health, physical health, or even spiritual health, if you will, we are mirrors of what our parents do. And so sometimes if their mental health is one such that, we're getting this diagnosis, but this is how we're going to move forward. We're going to stay on the trail. We're going to make our own trail. We're going to get resources. Then what happens is you, Meredith, and other patients or those living with PKU, they will also pass that down.
Yeah.
So really your parents who are doing this is a gift to you.
Yes, for sure. I totally agree. So how do you see families of your patients typically responding to diagnosis? How are different family members impacted with that?
That's a good question. Well, it's really mixed because we all have different personalities and we all have different parts of the nation that we live in or the world that we live in that make access different. Some parents, if not all, go into a shock or a disbelief. It's almost like you get a phone call and you just kind of taking your breath, but you just don't know where to, it's all mixed in there. Like you don't know where to place that. Sometimes it's a deep grief or a fear about the future as well. And then for sure, it's very overwhelming. So their world, your parents' world, the caregiver's worlds have shifted in an instant. There can also be guilt wondering if somehow they caused it, because at that moment of getting the diagnosis, you don't know what happened. Or anxious on how they manage their child's needs. There is a unique sense of isolation because you, family, and friends haven't heard the term before, and there's a lack of awareness and understanding. Limited support networks. So when you first get the diagnosis, you might not even know what a patient advocacy group is. You probably haven't even heard the word advocacy or support network. Like there's so many people that don't even know what a multidisciplinary team is. So all of that is coming at you. And then there's a scarcity of specialists and resources and emotional tool and stigma, financial and time constraints, and then the unpredictability in crisis management. But then at the same time, there are some parents that quickly move into problem-solving mode and focus on what needs to be done right away. It's important for everybody to know there's no right way to respond. These are just reactions are completely normal. But over time, you find support and strength, and you adapt, and you develop a new sense of normal for you and your child. It's only when the family's in denial, which I still run into, if they're in denial or feel that by sharing that their child has a metabolic condition, that's when it becomes very unhealthy. So really, the second part of the question, it's not really only the parents that are impacted. Siblings also are impacted by feeling guilty, feeling like they have to become the caregiver. Oftentimes when siblings feel that the other child is getting more attention, that's when their behaviors begin to change. If you make the siblings part of it or don't make them over-responsible for the child with PKU, that's very, very important. But interestingly enough, many siblings go into the nursing field, they go into the medical field because, man, they get it. They understand, they get it. There are grandparents, so as everybody knows who's listening here, grandparents have a little bit slower time coming to the conclusion of what a metabolic condition is. So they have a misinterpretation of, okay, we don't feed them protein, or we don't do this, we don't do that. But they still want to be grandparents and kind of sneak it in there a little bit, like, it's only a birthday party. But they also carry their own grief and their own guilt. But they eventually do come around and begin to understand. So every family member processes the news their own way. Some become deeply supportive right away. Others need more time to process it or adjust, or even more education like you're doing here. And above all, be just open to communication and things will work out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And you really nailed the whole family, grandparents and siblings and everyone. Anyway, thank you for that, because that does really shed light on how diagnosis can affect everyone, not just the parent, not just the patient. So that is very valuable. So Kendra, do you see the emotional journey differ for those living with rare conditions compared to those living without? How do those emotional needs evolve, moving from diagnosis to different stages of life?
No, that's a great question. Long question, but a great question, because there is a difference.
Yeah.
Though the two often overlap, since many rare conditions are also metabolic. But the distinction lies in the breadth versus intensity of the management needs. So generally speaking, in rare conditions, there's uncertainty, so emotional challenges often stem from not knowing the trajectory of the progression of the disease, or even having limited medical knowledge available. Many feel alone because of the rarity with limited peer community connections. And as you know, about 95% of those living with the ultra-rare disease do not even have treatment. And then families often struggle to have their experiences understood both medically and socially. So specifically for metabolic conditions, daily medical demands, that's wherein lies the difference. These conditions usually require tailored and often very strict, if you will, nutrition plans and medication or frequent monitoring. So often, maybe I shouldn't use the word strict, creating constant vigilance and potential burnout. And then predictable crises. So emotional strain comes from knowing that even in some of the metabolic conditions, even a small slip can lead to an acute complication, which induces fear and stress. It's added fear and stress. And then identity through routine. Emotional life is shaped by living under long-term, structured medical management. I don't care how you slice and dice it. I don't care what words you use for it or what words are politically correct at this time, but it is long-term structured medical management. So the emotional differences of the rare non-metabolic emotional journeys often marked by searching for answers. They can search for answers 12, 15 years. Dealing with medical ambiguity and navigating invisibility in the healthcare system. With metabolic, the emotional journey is more about the relentlessness of the daily management, fear of non-commitment consequences, and balancing normal life with ongoing medical tasks. But both bring isolation and uncertainty, which humans don't like uncertainty whatsoever. We like things in our lives that are certain. We like to know that when your child's born, it's going to develop at a certain developmental rate. They're going to go to kindergarten. They're going to have friends. They're going to go out of high school. They're going to go to college. So that we are trained in a very stepwise manner that we are certain in life that these things will happen.
Yeah.
So uncertainty does not hold well for anyone with a rare condition.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you add that layer of day-to-day management, that deeply shapes emotional well-being. So at different stages, I think that's what your next question was.
Yeah.
Okay. Each stage brings unique psychological challenges under that medical management. So at diagnosis, families often experience shock, fear, and grief. The need to focus on reassurance and clear information and hope while adjusting to that. But early childhood children may sense that they are different because they go around comparing themselves to each other. And why aren't they drinking what I'm drinking? Why aren't they eating what I'm eating? Why is it such a big deal? I don't like being different. So emotional needs center on, for children, being safe, included and supported in building self-esteem while parents manage most of their care. Young children are ruled by their emotions. Even though they can't tell their parents what they're feeling, they can show their parents how they're feeling through behavior. So I always encourage parents to understand their child's mindset or their world through an emotional lens is helpful. So their primary need is connection at all costs. They see the world in black and white, so they cannot grasp complex ideas that a lot of parents give to these children in a sweeping generalization where they don't understand what I need to do first, second, or third. So they shift to a supportive role rather than a directive one, fosters mutual respect and understanding. Boy, then we go to adolescence. Independence becomes a central challenge because teens struggle with wanting freedom. And I'm old, and I can remember back when I wanted the freedom. And I would come up with my tie-dye shirt and my tight jeans and bell-bottoms, and my dad would look at me, and he'd pull his glasses down and look, and he'd go. So then I'd change and have to come up with a different shirt and things like that. But we do want our freedom.
Yeah.
Emotional needs for this age include autonomy, peer acceptance, and guidance navigating their identity while living with a rare condition. Young adults, that's kind of where they kind of fall off the cliff a little bit because they're transitioning to adult care, and managing health personally can bring stress and that uncertainty. And sometimes with the uncertainty, they go, whatever, I don't get it. I'm uncertain about what I'm supposed to be doing, so I'm just going to not do anything. Their emotional needs are to focus on confidence, coping responsibility, and bringing supportive relationships. And then adulthood is, now you have family planning concerns, employment challenges. Their needs are more resilient, balanced, and preventing burnout. And what we're seeing now, Meredith, is later adulthood, which I find very interesting. Like, how do I manage my condition with different insurance needs and other health decline?
Yeah.
Because you're aging. And then what kind of legacy am I going to leave? And what purpose and meaning do I have? So through all of these stages, the thread is a need for connection, hope, and validation. Connection, hope, validation, flat out.
Absolutely. I love how you went through all the stages of life and different aging and stuff like that. Whenever I think about it, I'm very thankful for those who, of course, are older than me in generations, because I get to see how many stages they have been through when they didn't even have things on the market like Palynziq or Kuvan or Sephience now, or things like that. They had basically one formula, one canned bread, and then thankfully more options started coming out, like Cambrook and like different formula companies and different food companies, and having it all come together. And this might sound silly, but if there's a time to be born with PKU, the time is now.
That's not silly at all.
The time is now.
No, Meredith, when you think of 1935 all the way to now and through the 60s and the 70s, and when I started, it was limited, like you said, choices, very limited choices. It was not only the choices, it was the mind, the perception. It was the perception. Nobody knew about PKU or a metabolic condition.
Absolutely.
You just kind of kept it quiet. Now I feel like we are talking about it. And like you said, there's never been a better time.
Yeah.
I think Cambrook has over 100 different choices, maybe more than that, and they can correct me, in different food groups. I mean, what? That just, out of all conditions from the beginning of, that when we first identified PKU, until now, that is the shortest distance in history where we've made so many gains.
Yeah. And it's beautiful to see the population that was unfortunately told that they were able to go off diet, now being able to go on a treatment. That doesn't necessarily mean formula, but just means a treatment that's going to help them have more progression even at an older age. So seeing all these options and opportunities is beautiful right now in the community.
And it gives you a lot of hope.
Yes. And going into hope.
Oh, okay.
I have it ready. Okay, so those who are listening and cannot see, I'm holding up Kendra's drop of hope, and we're going to share a little bit about that. So I'll just share, I got mine when we were at the conference, the last conference from Kendra. And Kendra had all of us PKU adults that were a part of the mentor program choose our drop of hope, and this one's mine. I chose blue because the PKU ribbon is blue. That's why I chose it.
Oh, that's cool.
Kendra, what color was yours? Sorry, I missed it.
Well, I make all colors, but this one happens to be green.
She's holding up a green one. Okay, yeah. But Kendra is awesome, and she makes these. And let's get into why you make them and the story behind them. So I just had to bring mine today because I have mine hanging with all my PKU lanyards and stuff in my office. But there's a beautiful quote that I'd love to share. When all you need is a drop of hope, and many times a drop is all you have. For without hope, there is nothing. Kendra, with that being said, can you share what hope means to you, particularly in the context of maintaining quality of life while managing challenges of a rare disease and supporting mental health along the way?
Well, thank you. And thank you for holding up the drop, because I do believe if you have one drop of hope, you can get through absolutely anything. And there was a time in my life when I wrote that quote, when all you need is a drop of hope, and many times a drop is all you have. And sometimes that is how it is, because you become so overwhelmed. So in 2007, when my son was losing his life to leukemia, one of the last discussions that we had was around hope, because we had talked about hope all the time. And I think that in general, most people do. That, I hope it's a good day. I hope I can get through. I hope. And he asked that I continue to give people hope. And that's one of the last conversations that we had. And that's kind of how I live my life, is providing hope. So a drop of hope is the smallest glimmer of belief that something can get better, even when the world feels heavy. For humans, it's not measured in size, but in its power to shift a perspective, a calm fear, or open the heart to possibilities. It can be a kind word, a moment of kindness from a stranger, a small medical improvement, or courage to take one more step forward. A drop of hope can sustain us through uncertainty, bridge us to others, and remind us that even the smallest light can pierce greatest darkness. And really, Meredith, it's a drop of hope can fit in the palm of your hand, yet strong enough to hold the weight of a weary heart. It's the breath you take when the world feels too heavy, and it whispers to you, not yet, keep going. It doesn't erase darkness, but it offers a glimmer, a promise that light still exists, can find its way back to you. A single drop can steady trembling hands, mend unseen wounds, and spark the courage to take one more step towards tomorrow. It is the seed of every comeback. It's the quiet defiance in the face of struggle, the belief that no storm lasts forever, and it fuels the small steps that become great leaps, turning doubt into determination and fear into focus. And Meredith, if you and I could just metaphorically hold out our hand and we each have a drop of hope. If we gave that drop of hope to everyone who's in the world or everyone who is listening to this, if we provided a drop of hope for everyone, the magnitude of change that we can have throughout the world is enormous. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, of course. And it's your son's story that gets me every time.
It is his story.
But, yes. Sorry about that. Of course, you could tell I teared up during your son's part. But with that, let's go ahead and continue. But I do love this drop of hope, and I do have it in my office. I got this at the conference, like I said, and I know a bunch of us PKU adults all have them in different places, and mine happens to be with all my PKU lanyards. So just know I have it out
every day. It's just a symbol to remind you, that one drop of hope can get you through many things.
Yes. So thank you for that. That will be going back.
Thank you for allowing me to share my son's story.
Of course. Of course. So what role does the community play as a support system for individuals who are navigating their health journey and managing a complex metabolic condition?
Whew. That is a good question right there.
Yes.
I believe positive and productive communities play a vital role in buffering the emotional and practical challenges of living with a metabolic condition, because here's why. They do reduce isolation. You meet other people who share similar conditions, and so if you're lonely, that is one way to reduce your loneliness, is get involved with the community. And then it also provides validation. It says, I'm not the only one. So it helps normalize the experience. Also, the community offers knowledge. So families and patients trade tips about diet, treatment, and navigating the health care. They have collective wisdom about medical advice, filling in the real-world gaps. They also offer hope during setbacks and crisis. And then seeing others thrive, so they're role models. Seeing them thrive reinforces possibilities and resilience. And then your voice can be amplified. So within a community that you can trust, groups can push for better treatment, insurance coverage, and research funding, and also empower individuals to speak up in a clinical setting.
How can mental health challenges like anxiety affect someone's ability to balance their diet, including the use of metabolic formulas, low-protein foods, and what can we do to help individuals like myself feel more supported?
Well, anxiety and other mental health challenges can make managing strict metabolic even harder, because you're worrying, you're fatigued. Your guilt, you avoid it because you don't want to feel those things. But to help, care needs to go beyond medical monitoring, like we said before. It's got to be besides the labs and besides the diet notes, besides the little booklets. Providing mental health support, teaching coping skills, screening regularly for anxiety and depression can make a heap of difference. Just as important as addressing social determinants of health, connecting families to financial resources and things like that, we need to also understand that emotional and practical barriers are acknowledged.
Yeah.
So cognitive overload, I think, is one of these issues that you were talking about that keeps you from even moving the dial further over. Anxiety makes planning, tracking, measuring food more overwhelming because, come on, folks, it's not just the PKU. People live other parts of their lives. They have friends they go out with. They have homework that they have to do. They have homes to keep. They have pets to do. They have to pay their bills. They've got the UPS truck dropping stuff off. They've got, falling down the stairs and breaking their ankles. They've got everything. And then on top of that, they have managing this. And so it's a cognitive overload when you have to, okay, now I've got to plan, track, measure. And then fear of making a mistake can lead to skipped meals, reduced medical nutrition use, or neglecting food logs. So you don't want to make a mistake. So you kind of say, well, if I skip meals, there's no mistake because I didn't eat anything.
Yeah.
And then also physical symptoms like nausea, stomach upset can cause you not to move forward. And then perfectionism, getting it wrong can paralyze decision making. The impact on metabolic health is missed therapeutic medical nutrition leads to nutrition deficiencies. So other things begin to go downhill, like bone, things like that. And then inconsistent diet can trigger physical complications. So then it becomes a cycle of stress. And the way that we can support patients is by normalizing the struggle.
Yeah.
Acknowledging that managing diet under stress is generally difficult. Remember, you're not alone, though. Follow your metabolic plan under stress is tough, but every step forward matters and shows your resilience, your grit. Integrate your care. Screen regularly for anxiety and depression. I think that's critical that happens during clinic visits. Offer checklists, simplify meal plans, or digital apps to reduce that burden and that cognitive overload. And then what we need to do is teach coping strategies such as mindfulness, relaxation skills, cognitive reframing, and encourage connection with others managing the same diet for shared tips and encouragement.
Definitely. That all sounds very well. And I think the more simplistic it is, the more realistic it is.
And the more doable.
Exactly. More doable.
You can spiel a bunch of stuff out to people, but unless they have the time, unless they understand what you're asking them, it's not going to it's not going to happen.
What practical tools or habits have you found most helpful for when it comes to self-care practices and coping strategies and emotional well-being for your patients?
Well, there are many practical mental health tune-ups that anybody can do and coping strategies. So an estimate of 1 in 5 U.S. adults living with a mental health condition.
Yeah.
If they have a chronic condition, that goes up. And psychologists are keenly aware that the traditional services that they used to do where it was just one-on-one, make an appointment, I come, we talk, that's fine, and I believe in that. I wholeheartedly believe in that. But there's going to be a turn in the next few years, which is called population health approach. It means the wellness promoting services such as support groups, mental health education are going to get out to a larger group, just like we're doing now. So first of all, if you're in a place where you feel like you can't even do some of the tune-up exercises that I'm going through, please get help. Sometimes the strongest step is just reaching out, just professional support. Call your primary care physician, say, I'd like to see a therapist, counselor, psychologist, or reach out to your medical provider. It's not a weakness. Remember, we were talking about the knee just needing to have a little therapy. Well, this is where the mind needs some therapy just to tune up as well. So make one call or send one message to a therapist or to a friend that can help you. Even the small step counts. And then something that's very important is that we all can do today or right now is something called self-talk. We're in constant conversation with ourselves. We're narrating, second-guessing, planning, and sometimes panicking. But it is a true belief of mine that the tone of that internal monologue can either fuel resilience or feed anxiety.
Absolutely.
Many people fixate on negative thoughts and perceived mistakes because our mind will fixate on mistakes that we make. They won't listen to the 100 things we've done right during the day. They're going to fixate on something that you perceived as a humongous mistake.
Yes.
So allow yourself to bask in that thought, that mistake thought, but only for a set time, maybe 10 minutes. When emotions run high and anxiety, inner monologue can make things absolutely worse. Our self-talk often overreacts, setting off alarms about imminent failures and future disasters. So there's cognitive behavioral therapy you can go to. So when I talk about things like that, they ask you to ask yourself, is this thought useful right now? So whatever thought you guys are having out there, is this thought useful right now, or is it a part of an outdated, unhelpful script that you've been saying to yourself all your lives? Learning to spot them and reframing them can interrupt that emotional spiral and send you back into intentional actions. So instead of getting stuck in that feeling and that thought, now you're going to have an action for that. I'm going to do something about that. And really what we're talking about is grounding techniques. So whenever a thought just you ruminate and it goes through your head, or you can't get to sleep at night, there's a trick that even I often do. It's called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I want you to see 5 things in your environment. It can be new things. Even if you go to sleep, you can close your eyes and you can see 5 things. You can hear 4 things. So just listen right now at 4 things you can actually hear. You can touch 3 things, smell 2, and taste 1 in the moment. And that will anchor you back to where you're at. It will interrupt your thoughts, even for a moment. So when a negative thought shows up, pause and say, is this thought helpful or harmful? And can I handle this one step at a time?
Absolutely.
And then connection and support. Human connection is extremely important. Make those social bonds. So reach out to one person, send a short text, join an online group, share something small about your day. Also, stress management is inevitable. Everyone in the nation is stressed out. Really. So practice deep breathing, just taking some deep breaths. Mindfulness, appreciate right where you're at and only where you're at. Progressive muscle relaxation can calm your body. Take a short walk, journal, or practice gratitude. That's very important as well. The other thing is have a sense of purpose that guides you through difficult times. Purpose doesn't mean this grandiose thing, a grand achievement. It can be caring for your family, advocating for your health, or engaging in meaningful work or hobbies. But it really does fuel the motivation that you live for and offers perspective and reminds you over and over again, this is why I'm doing this. So write down one thing that gives you a sense of meaning, whether it's family, work, creativity, or advocacy. Place it somewhere visible as a reminder. And then everyday habits. Mental health is strengthened by basic habits: hydration, nutrition, regular sleep. Very important to know that. So also, I'd like to say, add some joy to your life. Because the brain has a natural negativity bias, we tend to remember stress, mistakes, or pain. By intentionally noticing and saving joyful reminders like this drop of hope or this little ring that a friend of mine gave me that I kind of ground myself with, these are mood lifters. So examples of joy could be a handwritten note or a photo of your family. I have leaves and rocks up on my desk as well. Play music. And also take a step back. And sometimes it just helps just to regroup without apology. Just say, I'm going to unplug. I need to be alone. I need to be alone in my thoughts. I need to add joy to my life. I need to create a habit that I haven't had. I need to put down on paper a purpose. I need to relax, maybe take up yoga or take up something else. But it's really good just to disconnect sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is great to know and also be aware of while navigating everyone's individual metabolic condition journey. With that, Kendra, if someone living with a metabolic condition wants to seek mental health support, what first steps do you recommend them to take? What should they expect when meeting with a mental health professional?
Well, first of all, just knowing that they need it is the very first step. And it also changes neurochemistry by just recognizing that I may need some help with my mental health. And the first thing is to ask your primary care physician or doctor that you meet with regularly and get a referral. Sometimes they need a referral with your insurance. But there are several types of therapy, what I call talk therapies. There's cognitive behavioral therapy that helps identify and change negative thought patterns and behavior. There's dialectical behavior therapy that emphasizes mindfulness, like we were talking about, distress tolerance, emotional regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. Then there's something that's called acceptance and commitment therapy. It focuses on accepting difficult emotions and committing to personal values. But first, know what type of psychologist or therapist that you would like to see. Is it somebody who specializes in anxiety or depression? Now, you're not going to find very many that professionals who have an expertise in a metabolic condition. That's going to have to come through your teaching of them. But all the anxiety and depression they can work with, and every coping mechanism they give you will use not only for the benefit of you, but for your family and for your friends as well. So it's not a magic, wand that they're doing. They're just giving you a sense of, okay, where does the difficulty lie? Are you anxious? I can give you oodles of coping situations. And then go to a counselor or a therapist and meet with them. Just meet with them on an informational phone call or a meet and greet before you dive into therapy sessions, just to see if you are going to work well. For a positive outcome and to foster good patient-psychologist relationship, it's bi-directional. So when they share, they have to get you to share as well and to tell them what is going on. So the person is the focus, not typically the condition.
Absolutely.
So there's many things, write down questions and concerns, but above all, the identity of the person being cared for and its valued. Psychologists, the trust is paramount and how sensitive they are.
Yes. Well, that is great to know for anyone who is looking to get some assistance with mental health support. So thank you for those tips and tricks, Kendra, when individuals are looking out for that. Can't believe we're coming to the last question already, but finally, could you share a key takeaway message for our listeners who are striving to live their life to the fullest while managing this complex condition, with having all different stages of life? And with that, do you see a role for the metabolic community in supporting that journey?
Oh, thank you, Meredith. Well, mental health means having the thoughts, the feelings, and the support you need to handle both everyday life and the challenges of your condition.
Mm-hmm.
It's about finding ways to cope with stress, stay motivated with your care, be kind to yourself, even when things don't go perfectly, and stay connected to people who understand and support you without judgment. The metabolic community plays a crucial role in this journey. Together, we can create a network that helps individuals and families feel understood, empowered, and hopeful at every stage of life. One drop of hope can inspire 1,000 more, spreading strength, courage, and the will to rise again. With a drop of hope, even the steepest climb becomes possible.
And I'm holding up my drop of hope for those who can't
thank
see.
you, Meredith.
Yes, of course. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kendra. But before you go, we have our fun community questions segment, if you're down for it.
I'm down for it.
Okay. So we have some people that asked you some questions that we have noted. So before we wrap up today's episode, it's time for community conversations, where we hear directly from you, our listeners. In this segment, we'll ask questions you've submitted, giving us a chance to explore our guest's story from new and personal perspectives. So Kendra, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, and the best part is, a couple of these people I know that you know.
Oh, great.
Yes. So the first one is Megan R. She asked, how did you first get involved with PKU, and how have you seen the medical community's treatment of the disorder evolve over the years?
Okay, so Megan, I was telling this before that I got involved. I think I've always, my whole life, watched animal behavior, which turned into human behavior, which turned into my graduate work, where I was asked to give a report on rare diseases and metabolic conditions. And with that, it pulled me in, and it had me from the very first start. So your question is really good. How have I seen changes in the community's treatment of the disorders evolve? And in the early years, the early approaches were centered on preventing immediate harm. So strict low-protein diets and hospitalizations due to crisis. Oftentimes, there were sad stories of children being removed from the homes because they had declined cognitively and behaviorally. And very limited options for treatment. They felt restrictive with very, very few formulas in the beginning. So, back from 1935 or 34 all the way up to now, we have a lot of options. And then improved medical food. So a wider variety of formulas and low-protein food have made these diets more sustainable and less isolating. And that's key, so that the stigma isn't there, and you're more likely to take the formula. And then biopharmaceutical and enzyme therapies, targeted treatments are expanding beyond diet-only approaches. And then now we have newborn screening. So early detection has shifted outcomes dramatically for all rare conditions, turning conditions once fatal into manageable chronic conditions.
We also have Karen C. And just a little shout out to her. She just became a dietitian, and this goes along with her question.
Congratulations.
What advice would you give a new metabolic dietitian just starting their practice?
Oh, There's so many. I don't feel qualified because, I'm not a dietitian, but generally speaking, I would say my advice to a new dietitian is to remember that every patient is unique with different needs, motivations, and challenges. A person-centered care means listening deeply to their story and asking what matters to them and tailoring their guidance rather than relying on a one-size-fits-all approach. Consider their goals. Their goals may not be your goals. Work around what their goals are and their beliefs and their intentions and their barriers and their capabilities. And by what context do they live in? Are they going to a private school? Are they going to a parochial school? Are they going to college? Are they entering a new job force? Compassion is essential. Many families are balancing stress, fatigue, uncertainty, and kindness often matters as much as your medical expertise. If you recognize that your patient's consistently sad or anxious, kind of nudge them to get some help. As everyone knows me, words, language, and phrases that were once considered acceptable may not carry weight. They may cause harm, reminding us how communication has evolved. Being mindful of these changes allow us to connect others in ways that are more respectful. Finally, always be mindful of the social determinants of health. So a family maybe fully understand the diet but still struggle with the cost, access to low-protein foods, or therapeutic medical nutrition or transportation. Please meet people where they're at.
Yes.
And helping to connect them with resources, build trust, and helps them to succeed. Bring both your head and your heart to work.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. I love that. Definitely meeting someone where they're at.
Where they're at.
Yes.
There's no other place you can meet them.
Yeah. You're there for them.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you so much. I'm sure Karen is going to love that answer. For the next question, last but not least, Nikki W. asked, how should executive function management differ between UCD, ASA, and ADHD? How do you balance an effective stimulant dose without suppressing appetite?
That's a complex question. And since I'm not a medical doctor, not able to prescribe medications as of yet, I can only speak to the first part of the question. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But let's just start with definition of executive function.
Absolutely.
From a neuropsychological point of view, they are a set of higher order cognitive processes that allow us to regulate our behavior so we don't fly off the handle or we don't run into our room and hide. They regulate our thoughts and our emotions in order to achieve a goal that we have set forward. They include skills such as planning, organizing, initiating tasks, so getting them started, shifting between tasks, transition from one task to another, that we can easily shift from that instead of saying, no, I got to finish this before I start something else. Problem solving, self-monitoring, controlling impulses or inhibit, and then working memory. In other words, the brain's management system. They help us coordinate that we pay attention to, how we make decisions, how we adapt to changing situations. So they're the brain's management skills that are linked to the prefrontal cortex and are essential for independent daily functioning, learning, and social interaction. Executive function differences can appear in UCDs, ASA, and ADHD, but the cause, the pattern, and therefore the management approach will differ. So in urea cycle disorders, the cause of the executive function issues results mainly from having episodes, and it's detrimental to their attention, working memory, and processing speed. To manage UCD, executive function issues, consistency is critical. Provide structured routines that minimize cognitive load. Use all sorts of external supports like planners, reminder, checklists, so that they don't always have to rely on their working memory. Health integration, coordinate executive function strategies with metabolic care. So fatigue, diet, formula intake, all influence cognition. And then flexible pacing and reduced demands. So flexible pacing. So are they more alert in the morning? Is their attention better in the morning or better after lunch, or is it better at a certain hour? So they can do flexible pacing, they can schedule differently. With ASA, it's these produce more persistent executive function challenges than UCD alone. So not only the repetition or over learning, so they need to hear things over and over again, and then repetition. So practice, and skill building. Also monitoring for impulsivity, irritability, and mood dysregulation. And teach some really straightforward coping skills. And then the collaborative care for them also would be regular neuropsychological monitoring to help adjust over time so they can change educational, your IEP, individual educational program. And then they benefit more from structured executive function intervention like computerized cognitive rehab if they can do that and sit there and pay attention. ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder with primary dysfunction in attention regulation, inhibition, so they can't stop. So they're ones that are kicking the front of your desk, kick. They're the people in the office that are clicking their pens, click. They don't know how their behavior impacts anybody else, so they continue to tap. So they're very impulsive. They get up from the table or someplace, they knock their milk over, but it's continuous like that. So they're impulsive, and they need separate ones than the ones that I was talking about. So they kind of need more, in this case, and I can't speak to stimulant or non-stimulant medication, key part of their management. Using reinforcement, structured breaks, get them to walk around. When I was a teacher, I would let all my students with ADHD answer the questions while they were walking around. Skill coaching, build metacognition, like planning, prioritizing, using a lot of tools. And then the environment needs to be modified so they have minimal distractions. Don't set them next to the gerbil cage. Don't set them next to your family room if you're putting them to bed, because they can hear what's going on in the movies that are playing. They'll sneak up, get out of bed, and try to watch. So differences in management, UCD are episodic and health dependent. ASD is more chronic and pervasive, and ADHD is primary lifelong attentional regulation issues.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that, Kendra. It's definitely very informative. I feel like this whole episode today, you've been just teaching me the whole time. I'm sure the audience is also going to feel that way. So that's great. Beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, that is all for the community conversations today.
Rats.
I know. I'd love more. But we received some really insightful questions today. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone who sent them in, and a big thank you to everyone who tuned into this episode. Remember, you're not alone. Balancing mental health and a metabolic condition is possible, one step at a time. Your story matters, and even on the tough days, the small moments of connection and self-kindness can make a difference. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Kendra.
Of course. And I'm showing my drop of hope one last time.
Oh,
You want to
go.
show yours, Kendra? You got it? There we go.
That's all we need.
Yes. Just my drop of hope.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it for today's episode of Metabolically Speaking. Rare conditions, real stories, and a reminder that life with a metabolic condition is about living, not limits. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you have a moment, please leave us a review. It helps others find their way here too. We'd love to hear from you. If you have feedback, a story to share, or a question, send us an email. You'll find the email address in the show notes below. Make sure to subscribe to Metabolically Speaking on your favorite podcast platform and tune in each month to join your tribe, breaking barriers and living without limits. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.